disrupt the group. But I guess I'll get us started, and I'll welcome Mark Fetterhoff. And Mark Fetterhoff is managing the ElderWatch program for AARP here in Denver. And he's worked on education and outreach to older adults for over 10 years. And Mark currently works with a crew of dedicated volunteers to address thousands of inquiries each month about fraud, scams, and financial exploitation as part of the AARP ElderWatch and AARP FraudWatch network. So thank you so much for being here, Mark, and we're really interested to hear what you have to share about what's happening in the fraud world. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I see many familiar faces. I don't believe I've met you, Chris, in person before, and I don't believe I've met Roy, but I have definitely met John and Stan and Rocky. So it's nice to see all of you here today. And maybe we'll get a couple more folks who will join on. Oh, I see
Cherry
there as well.
Well, welcome.
Thanks.
So we're just getting started here, Sherry.
Okay.
Today we're going to talk about some of the frauds and stuff, and I know a lot of you guys are familiar with the frauds and scams and ElderWatch and the FraudWatch network. So if you have specific questions that you're thinking about, that you want to ask me, particularly about what's going on, what's been going on over the last couple of months with regard to our programs, I'm happy to share that. I have a couple slides that I put together just to help jog my memory of what we're talking about today. There we go. And so I know a good deal of you are familiar with ElderWatch and the work that we're doing around ElderWatch. But for those who might not be, ElderWatch is a partnership between AARP and the Colorado Attorney General's Office, and it's been in place for over 18 years. We do two main things in the state. That's education and outreach, as well as have a volunteer. I would say those two things still exist, but in a different form. So we are still handling calls as part of the ElderWatch helpline. We're not getting as many calls as we had been. We typically take between 300 and 400 calls in a month. Right now, we're taking more like 100 to 250, depending upon the month. It's been varying, and the types of calls that we're getting have been varying as well. Close my window, it's getting loud outside. So we're still doing that work and trying to keep up with as many of those ElderWatch calls as we can. So when people call the Colorado Attorney General's Consumer Complaint Line, we're option 2, and they'll get a hold of us that way. The education outreach across Colorado looks very different as well. We are not doing in-person events and won't be definitely through June. Hopefully, second half of this year, we'll be able to do events again. I know Stan is disappointed that we're not doing our shredding event in Black Forest this June, but hopefully we can do it at the end of the summer into the fall. So we're hoping all those things can start again, but we have had to cancel lots of events as a part of everything that's going on. So right now our volunteers are working remotely. There are 25 volunteers who are handling calls both in the Denver area and in Seattle. We got them cell phones, and they're using those cell phones to return calls to the extent they can. The FraudWatch Network helpline is as busy as ever and being promoted more and more. So that work is continuing. We're doing, in our office, we're doing lots of statewide, but also lots of national work. So, and that work is really helping to inform AARP and AARP's members about the different types of frauds and scams that are happening across the country. Many of you know Amy. Amy and I work together to help put together articles for the AARP bulletin, and it's based upon what people are calling about and people are reporting to our helplines. So in the next article in the next bulletin that should be coming out in the next week, you'll see an article on fraud that's talking about coronavirus, COVID-19 related scams that we've been hearing as part of the helpline. And so that's all generated in our shop. We work with the editors of the helpline to do that work. So those calls mean something, and those reports mean something in terms of that. And agencies like the FTC and FCC and other federal agencies ask us what we're hearing about as well. So they help inform communications that are coming out from large federal agencies too. So I just want to go over some of the top scams from 2019. Then I'm going to go over some of the specific coronavirus-related scams. I know some of you were on the webinar that we did, or potentially the teletown hall that we did with the Attorney General. And so some of this content might be reviewed, but we've also had some updates on some of these scams as well. So I did not, in that presentation, we did not go over the top 10 scams from ElderWatch in 2019. So I just wanted to go over those quickly. I know a lot of these will be familiar to a lot of you, but keep the drumbeat up on a lot of these scams because they're happening. Continue to tell your friends and neighbors about these scams because they're not going anywhere. Right now, ElderWatch is in the middle of fielding a survey that's going out statewide, 1,000 adults, 18 plus across Colorado, about different types of frauds and scams that folks are exposed to. I just saw the preliminary data from that survey yesterday. So has anyone gotten a call from asking for a survey by any chance? So it is representative data that we're using a research firm that's based in DC, and they call out to 1,000 Coloradans and ask them about 20 questions about frauds and scams and their practices with relation to frauds and scams. And I know Chris has a couple of survey questions too, or poll questions that we can ask the group. I don't know if we want to ask one now.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to do. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about the ID theft one?
Okay.
Or all of them is fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, actually, they all came in at once. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
So there's 3 questions up there right now. We'll get some data from you all while we're talking about the actual survey that I'm have in the field. So
yeah, if you all can see the poll that popped up, you can answer each of these 3 questions. That'd be super, and then we can share the results.
Yeah. And so some of these questions I'm asking because they were questions that are being asked on the statewide survey that I'm doing as well. And it's really interesting to see, particularly with regards to how people feel about identity theft, different types of coronavirus scams that might have been, people might have been approached by during this time, as well as education with regards to fraud alerts and credit freezes, that type of a thing. So just trying to make sure people are aware of those types of services as a way of protecting your identity. So it looks like everyone, or most people, have probably weighed in. The first one, only one call, text, or email related to coronavirus scams. I might ask whoever that was to share. How concerned are you about identity theft? So everyone has a certain level of concern, and when we've done this survey of Coloradans, we find that usually 85% fall in that very concerned or somewhat concerned. So that falls pretty much in line with where you all are. And you currently have a fraud alert or credit freeze. And so 3 of the 5 folks here do have that. And so if anyone has questions about that, we can always talk about that as well. Cool, thanks for answering these questions. Whoever is on the call who did have exposure to a coronavirus scam, would you mind sharing what it was? Oh, sorry, I'm showing them right now, I think.
Hi, let me unmute everybody. Okay, go ahead. I think it may have been muted.
So whoever might have had an experience with a coronavirus related scam, any interest in sharing what it was?
Yeah. It was about somebody that had a miracle cure.
Oh.
All you had to do was purchase this bottle of stuff and you'd be safe for the rest of your life.
So how many did you get?
No, I passed on that one.
Well, you should give him my phone number. I'd like to chat with him about it too. And in a second, I'll talk a little bit more about those types of scams that have been reported, but I appreciate you sharing that because it has been a different world in terms of the types of scams that we're hearing about and the different twists that we're seeing because of the way the world works right now. So just real quick, I want to talk about our normal top 10 imposter government scams. Those have almost completely changed from IRS scams to Social Security imposter scams, and I'm sure has anyone gotten one of those types of calls that's on the phone right now or on the call right now? They're out there, and I am thinking this group might be savvy enough to not be answering those phone calls that they're not that they don't know who's calling, but they're definitely out there. And we're still talking to people who are victimized by this scam every day, and people are home, and these imposters definitely are getting people while they're at home who think they need to be answering their phone. Sweepstakes, prize, and lottery scams. I was handling a lot of calls on Monday, and I'll say that there's a major uptick of these types of scams as well, and people who are still being victimized. So again, anytime you have to pay money to receive money, it is a scam, and we have to really drive that home. Same with the tech support scams and computer viruses. When you're thinking about these scams, a lot of them are occurring because people are at home and they might be bored or they might be on their computer more. People who are not typically in their computer as much might be in their computer more. So we're also seeing an uptick of tech support and computer virus scams. And when we've done a survey in the past, and the numbers look like they're going to fall about in line with that, but when we've done surveys in the past, upwards of 70 to 72% of Coloradans have received this type of a scam at some point, which is a huge number. It ends up being one of the most common scams that we hear about, whether it's reported or not. Home repair and improvement issues really fall under two categories. One is the straight up scam where someone shows up, asks for money, and then never shows up to do the job. And the other is where someone has a disagreement with a contractor or some type of person who's doing work on their home. So they're obviously handled in different ways, but doing background research about any type of firm that you're working with to do home repair and improvements is vital. We're not getting as much of this right now, just because people are doing less projects. People are scared to have people in their home. Though I'll say there are lots of people doing yard projects. When I've been walking around my neighborhood, everyone's improving their yard. My neighbors, I cannot believe the amount. I wish I would have done a before and after picture of the work they've done in their yard. But it's not involved hiring anyone, but man, they're out there right now smashing sidewalks because they are just going to town. I'm guessing it's similar in other people's neighborhoods as well. Right now, we are seeing lots of phishing reports as well. And it'll be interesting to see how these numbers change for the 2020 calls because of the situation that we're in right now, because I have a feeling there will be a shift in some of these numbers just based upon what's going on. And so lots of phishing going on, people reporting to be with different organizations, legitimate companies like Amazon, particularly Amazon. We're seeing lots of reports of that. Also, shipping companies, FedEx, UPS, those types of places, you're getting emails, texts, that type of correspondence saying that they're with these companies, asking you to verify information or give you their login and password to the accounts. So it's definitely something to be watching out for. Those romance and online dating scams fall right in line with this coronavirus as well, and I believe we're going to see an uptick in those. just because, again, people are home, people are on social media more and being contacted by all types of folks. And those, all the different romance and online dating scams, again, we're seeing major upticks in reports of those right now. Identity theft, we asked you that question about if identity theft is an issue for you or if you're concerned about it. And most people believe it is, and almost any scam might have a aspect of identity theft as a part of it, whether they got your credit card number or bank account number or social security number. So we're constantly doing identity theft, education, mitigation, in terms of making sure people are aware what's going on. Insurance and Medicare, we have been seeing some alerts coming out from Medicare about different types of scams. There was one that came out in Florida, I believe, where people were going door to door, and you guys might have heard of these DNA test scams, and that's one of the reasons why our insurance and Medicare is on this top 10 list, is because those DNA test swab scams, essentially what they're doing is going around and getting people a swab of someone's cheek and to see if they're predisposed to a certain type of cancer. And then, and then getting their Medicare number and then billing Medicare upwards of $30,000 or $40,000 for that swab, which, it doesn't necessarily hit the person directly in their pocketbook, but it hits everyone's pocketbook because it is Medicare fraud, and Medicare was paying some of those claims or paying half of some of those claims, which is a lot of money for a cheek swab, right? And people were never even getting results. So we were hearing the same type of scam with as part of the coronavirus. In Florida, they were going door to door saying mandatory testing for people, getting their Medicare number, and then I think billing it as a DNA test scam. And, again, billing Medicare upwards of $20,000 or $30,000 for that type of a scam. So
Alan had a question.
Hey, Mark, I'm just surprised to hear that Medicare would pay that kind of money out.
Yeah, no, it's a thing, and I don't think they caught on to it right away, but they've definitely done a much better job of catching on to it recently. So I don't think the scammers are getting away with it to the same extent that they were, but I think it's just based upon the sheer volume of claims that are going into Medicare that is why it was working. We know that when we've seen these types of scams pop up in Denver, the police department has called us to see what's going on so they can go shut these people down. So people are much more keen to it now, but we literally have these types of scams happening in front of the Capitol building where they're giving out the phones as well. And so they were trying to get Medicare numbers or Medicaid numbers from anyone so they could try to do these false claims. And so when we see these types of things, but the part of the problem is we're seeing folks go door to door now. So it's a little bit harder to track them down, especially if people don't know that it's not really a scam. So, but as soon as, they get the wrong person at the door, hopefully they can shut them down. But yeah.
Sorry, the other question I had is that because AARP does such a great job nationwide with these kind of scams, are you at all communicating with like Medicare on what you're seeing in terms of frauds related?
Most definitely, yeah. We're constantly in contact. We work, particularly in Colorado, I can really speak for ElderWatch because we work very closely with DORA and the Senior Medicare Patrol, and they're working very closely with Medicare to stop any types of fraud. But yes, AARP on a national level is working very close with Medicare as well to alert them of these different types of scams. And they really, again, AARP ends up being eyes and ears for a lot of folks and a lot of federal agencies as well, just because we have stronger communication vehicles than some of them. Any other questions about that one? In addition to those scams, the DNA swab scams, we also continue to see the back brace, neck brace, all those the standard Medicare scams, and really trying to educate people that any of those types of requests should be coming directly from your doctor. Number 9, non-stranger exploitation. Hate to see this on the list, but it pretty much continues to be there. It's usually a family issue where someone is taking money or taking advantage of an older adult, but oftentimes too, it could be a caregiver or a neighbor. We do get a fair amount of reports of these, and that's why it ends up on the list. We've been getting, over the last couple of months, we've also been getting a fair amount of these calls too. Unfortunately, talking about taking funds, either Social Security funds or redirecting Social Security funds or redirecting the stimulus check funds as well. So that's been an issue over the last couple of months. And fraudulent sales, I think this will come up in next year's numbers, just because people are buying more and more things online, and that means more fraudulent sellers are coming online as well. You know, we've heard everything from, you know, people scamming from masks. We talked to someone about, I was listening to a call the other day about popcorn. So someone was trying to order popcorn online, and it was actually a scam site. So they're just trying to get their credit card number so they could use it for something else. Unfortunately, but it's a thing. So I expect those numbers to go up as well. So just with the other types of coronavirus scams that we've been hearing about, obviously, you know, from day one, we were day one from when the president announced that there was going to be some type of a check or payment going to, you know, taxpayers. We started hearing about scams with regard to this, people trying to help you with it, or however it may be, or whatever situation it may be. But I would say those have died down just a little bit, though we still are getting some of those claims where someone's going to help you get that money, or help you get another stimulus, or whatever it may be, you know, trying to make claims. And a lot of them are coming in the forms of unsolicited calls, texts, or emails. So watch out for those, and let us know if you're seeing anything with that regard, because we're trying to educate as many folks as we can as we see those scams come in. Health product scams, we heard one example of that already today from one of the folks on the call. And, you know, I have a feeling that these types of scams are not going to go away for maybe even a couple of years. And you can see why. People are uneasy about the situation that we're in, and they're trying to make it better. You know, right away we started hearing these scams too, with regards to even just people. You know, right away when this all started, I remember getting some ElderWatch reports where one woman, as an example, told me that someone was calling to give them like public service information about what the CDC is recommending in terms of hand washing and different things, and it was all really good information, and you know, fell in line with what the CDC was sharing anyways. But then at the end, we're trying to sell them a supplement to keep her healthy in the long run. So those are the types of things that we're still seeing with health product scams. It's important to remember that anytime you're going to buy anything, or it should be, you know, follow the guidance of the CDC or the Colorado Department of Public Health, any of those agencies that we're following, local and state authorities, and folks, and your doctor, of course. The test kits, there has been a test. This is kind of a new revelation, but there has been a at-home test kit approved by the FDA, and so I think there were people, you know, trying to sell test kits before there was one, but now that I think there actually is one, it even opens up more room for frauds and scams, because folks know that there is one. So something to be watching out for. But we did see examples of the mandatory testing, people going door to door telling there's mandatory testing, and that could fall in line with those Medicare scams as well. So, you know, again, following the guidance of the CDC and our Department of Public Health and local officials is the way to go with regards to testing, and going to official sites, of course, where there is testing, or healthcare provider. Charity scams, you know, anytime there's an emergency or crisis situation, charity scams are going to pop up, and we have seen these. Just make sure. I always suggest when we talk about charity scams to give to local organizations that are doing good, and otherwise, vet whatever charity that you're giving to. In Colorado, checkthecharity.com is the website that you can go to that's run by the Secretary of State that will tell you if that charity is licensed to registered funds, to solicit funds, is licensed to solicit funds. And so that's a great website. It's checkthecharity.com. It's not a beautiful or sexy website, I'll tell you that, but it is the website that is run and that's run through the database of the Colorado Secretary of State. And it's also run in partnership with the Attorney General's office, so they can help follow up with some of those cases. And I've had some instances where people call and check about charities based on solicitations, and we call over to our buddies and when they're not registered on there, we can call over to our buddies at the Secretary of State's office, and they'll do a follow-up with those folks right away. So I've seen some action in regards to those, and they follow up with me and tell me what happened. So usually it means that that person is filed too late, or their filing was in process. But it is good to know there's action with regards to those types of charities. Price gouging. We were getting complaints, particularly from Southern Colorado, about price gouging at different places, and sometimes price gouging is a matter of opinion in terms of what's going on. But we were hearing toilet paper, meat. I got an example of ketchup. That was fun. It was a fancy ketchup that was going for $5.50 or something like that. So we were getting some good examples of price gouging, and one thing about price gouging is, and I don't think we haven't gotten any reports of this over the last 3 weeks. There doesn't seem to be supply issues in most places in Colorado, but supply and demand right now, they're saying that there might be some meat shortages, but understanding supply and demand, if there are shortages of things, prices might go up a little bit. And so, understanding the economics of it is important. It's not always necessarily price gouging, just because King Soopers doesn't have this particular, type of beef on their normal sale that they usually do, or whatever it may be. So, but look for alternatives, and you can report those types of things to the Attorney General as well. Though they're really right now mostly looking at any type of price gouging that's happening online with regards to medical equipment, mask supplies, different types of things like that, hand sanitizer, and trying to pursue those type of things. Help and services scams. I'm really happy that we haven't had many reports of this recently, though there were some reports that went to the Attorney General's office. People who claim to maybe be a good Samaritan or helping older friends or neighbors or strangers at the grocery store, telling them they'll get things because the older person is scared about going into the grocery store or unable to do that type of a thing. So, this person goes to get groceries for them, takes their money, and then never shows back up again. So we did get reports of this towards the beginning of all of this, but not so much anymore. And the good news is, again, if you're hopefully folks are helping to take care of those people around them, and they have someone who they can trust to help them if they can't go to the grocery store or whatever errands, get their prescription medicine or whatever it may be. Other scams that target you at home, I pretty much talked about. There's any of the scams that are coming over the phone, in addition to those romance scams and anything that might be showing up at your door. One of them might be the census. As far as I know right now, the census is still not doing any door-to-door enumeration until the end of the summer. And so they keep pushing it back. It was supposed to start in mid-May, then it was supposed to start in mid-June, and I believe they pushed it maybe as far as the end of July or August right now. But the best thing you can do to avoid census scams is to handle the census before anyone shows up at your door. So everyone should have received something in the mail inviting them to take the census online. And since everyone is on a web chat, I have a feeling that most people wouldn't have a problem filling out their census form online. So if you haven't done that yet, please do. I'm supposed to do a radio show tomorrow about census and different census scams. We still have been getting reports of census scams, and most of them are census scams that are coming via email. And so the census is not communicating with people for the large, 2020 national census via email. Almost every correspondence should be coming through the mail. The first three would be invitations to take the census online, and the fourth one would have been a invitation to take it online, or also a paper survey that you would then fill out and send back in. If you didn't do any of those things, that's the only reason someone might be showing up at your door. And you can remind people of that. They're not going to send the 10-question questionnaire out via email. They might follow up as a phone call to just tell you that you received it, or that you didn't fill out one of the questions when you did fill it out. That's the only time they would contact you over the phone. But census scams, all the ones we've heard about pretty much relate to them sending out emails or calling and requesting a social security number. The census is not going to ask for your social security number. They're really just trying to count the amount of people in each household. So they're not checking social security numbers, that type of a thing. We did find out that the census will be doing, oh, was there a question? Sorry. We did find out that the census will be doing a survey with regard to COVID-19, and that'll be happening in the next month or so, or starting in the next month or so, but it's asking people about their experiences with it, and that there is a potential for that to come out via email, but it's going to look nothing like the 2020 kind of large-scale census that we're talking about, and it's going to be directly related to coronavirus and people's experience with it as well. And they're asking what I believe is 13 million people in that survey. And so it's unlikely that anyone would get it anyways, but it is going to be out there and looking different than the census that you've already filled out.
What you just mentioned about the survey about the coronavirus, that would be a survey sent out from the CDC, you said, or it
would be through the census.
Oh, through the census.
So I have a feeling that it's probably in collaboration with the CDC, but it's going to be asking about specific experiences related to coronavirus. So, and trying to get people's, if they'd been tested, if they had it, that type of a thing.
Okay.
So it will be directly in relation to that, and nothing to do with the household count that is going on. Honestly, before all this coronavirus stuff showed up, we were really gung-ho about promoting census, but it really got overshadowed by all this coronavirus. So we did a lot of education in January and February about the census and avoiding census scams, but it's really been overshadowed since then. And though we still do get census-related scam calls reported to us, not too many in Colorado, but on the national helpline, we've been getting quite a few.
Hey, Mark, are you seeing on the national level that there are different kinds of scams that are being perpetrated regarding coronavirus, and like the hotspots like New York and other places around the country?
Yeah, and I think I think these scams are happening everywhere, but they are regional. Like the other day, we got 5 calls reporting a scam in Maryland. And it was all the exact same scam, all the same people reporting it. So it was an investment scheme of some sort of that was targeting Spanish-speaking population, taking advantage of different folks. But yeah, we are seeing regional differences. I'll say we're getting lots of calls from New York. I think part of it too is that people in New York City might be more liable to be home right now and looking to follow up on things they haven't followed up on for a while. So, there's elements of all these being at home, having different things to do, and also having different experiences. And so, I would say consistently, we're still getting, the most calls from California. Calls are really representative of population of the state. And so we're still getting most calls from California, Texas, Florida, New York, the most populous states, Chicago area, that type of a thing. But not necessarily huge differences, but little pockets of regional differences when things like that happen. And Medicare scams are notorious in Florida and Arizona just because, older populations. But so, yeah.
Does anybody have questions for Mark?
Any other questions? The last one I just wanted to touch on real quick was about other scams to watch for in the months ahead. And so I just talked to a gal this morning who had been approached by a mystery shopper scam. We're going to be seeing lots of different types of scams around employment, particularly as people are needing work. And we're going to see lots of scams around working from home, I believe. I mean, the mystery shopper is a little bit of a push right now since a lot of stores aren't open, but it's still happening. And so it's important to be watching out for those and make sure people are aware of those types of a scam, as well as different offers for loans or interest rate, solving interest debt consolidation, different things like that. So, be watching out for those types of things, particularly as people are dealing with financial hardships, needing money, all those different types of scams where people are vulnerable. And might be more susceptible to, responding to an ad that sounds too good to be true, that otherwise they might not, because they're less desperate for funds. I also just think that we're constantly going to be seeing new and different types of scams. So, as folks see those types of scams, please encourage them. If you're talking to friends and neighbors or family members and they heard of something, or they got a scam attempt that seems out of the norm, let us know about it right away so we can start spreading the word about it.
What's the best way to inform AARP if we do see scams?
Give me a call.
Just okay. Call the Denver office.
Yeah. Give me a call. Yeah, no. On the next, there's the phone number's right there. You can call the ElderWatch helpline, and I'm the one who's mostly doing the ElderWatch calls right now. So I'm responding to calls all day as we get them. All of our calls right now are being left as a message, and then we're calling them back. And so, you can call that helpline, and I'm happy to call you back and chat about these different types of scams. You can report to Stop Fraud Colorado. That's the AG's website that takes consumer complaints. I share, as I see trends of scams, I send an email over to my counterparts, the AG's office, and get alerts out right away. So I'll say that we might even move quicker than them on getting alerts out. So I'm, with regard to that one scam that I was talking about with Maryland, that was affinity fraud, it was targeting, Spanish-speaking population, called the AARP Maryland office communications folks, and they are working with the Attorney General's office in Maryland over the last 2 days, getting out alerts about this scam. So it's we work quick on this stuff, particularly as we see the need.
Good job, Mark. Very good job.
Yeah, any other questions? Happy to answer any other questions that folks have, or about trending scams or anything else that you might be seeing out there.
Mark, I was on a call yesterday with a regional AAA, and some of the people up in the rural communities of Colorado are concerned about just getting information about ElderWatch. Is there any outreach to those particular communities from your office?
We worked pretty closely with the area agencies on aging. As I think some of you know, my last profession was or my last job was working at the National Association of Area Agencies on Aging. So I have a lot of relationships with the Colorado AAA directors, though that they've changed a lot. And I know the AAA director in Grand Junction has changed within the last year. I've not met her in person, but we reached out with regard to that event that we did in Grand Junction last November. So, you know, you can always feel free to put them in contact with me. And I'm really, I was actually working with all of the library districts over the last month after we did the webinar. And I know you're on that, John, the webinar that we did with Attorney General. But I've been working with in Mesa County Library District as well as other large library districts in Colorado, getting that information out to anyone who will take it. But if you have other ways of getting a hold of folks or other folks that you know need this information that we can communicate with, happy to do it. We're doing a telephone town hall with the Attorney General on May 15th. And if folks want information about how to get on that, we can do that. We can send that out to you. There's just a link that you sign up for to register to get the call. Otherwise, it goes out randomly to AARP members across the state. And so I believe we're dialing out to about 50,000 on May 15th at 10 a.m. And so if you would like to be a part of that call, or if you know people who want to be part of that call, I'm happy to send you the link for people to register to receive that call. And so you could even register someone who doesn't have a email to receive that call because it comes through the phone.
Thank you very much.
That's one of our best answers. And I'll say that those telephone town halls is one of the best ways that we reach the most rural folks in Colorado. Because it doesn't require you going anywhere, and oftentimes you can see when we're doing those calls, you can see the different places that we're talking to, and it really is like, you know, I grew up in Colorado, my parents grew up in Colorado, but there's some towns I've never heard of that are registered on those teletown halls. So it's fun to be able to touch people in all different places particularly if we can't do in-person events like we usually do.
Well, let me suggest, Mark, that you might want to call Heather Jones and talk to her about the possibility of having you give a 10 or 15 minute presentation at the next regional meeting.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to do that. She's the newest. I know I have her email. She's the newest AAA director in Grand Junction, right?
Yeah, let me give you her phone number.
Yeah.
It's 970-248-2717. Leave a message and she'll get back to you.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll do. They've been good to work with, and the library, the gal at the library there too, Jennifer. You probably know her.
Morale. Yeah.
Morale, yeah. I've been working with her quite a bit as well, trying to get information out. So appreciate that connection, John.
Okay.
Any other questions or thoughts?
No.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone being on today, and then good seeing some familiar faces, and I hope everyone is doing well, and thanks to Chris for hosting. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks
Very much for doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime you guys ever have a question, you know, I know you're all very well connected with Jeremiah, but Jeremiah can put you in direct contact with me or anyone, or if you don't have my information already, you know, always feel free.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for attending today. This is very informative and helpful information. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
You too. Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.